Whispers from the Well. The old farmhouse stood sentinel against the endless fields, its weathered wood whispering tales of forgotten harvests. Behind it, swallowed by overgrown weeds and gnarled branches, lay a well. Not a well of life, but a gaping maw of shadow and secrets. Ellie found solace there, drawn to its quiet mystery. The air around it hummed with a strange energy, a promise of something hidden. She would sit for hours, dangling her feet over the moss-covered stones, listening to the wind sigh through the skeletal trees. One day, a whisper rose from the depths. Faint, like the rustling of dry leaves, it slithered into her ear. It spoke her name, a chilling caress that sent shivers down her spine. "I can grant your wishes," the voice rasped, a promise laced with something ancient and hungry. Ellie, young and naive, dismissed it as a trick of the wind, a figment of her lonely imagination. But the whisper persisted, a constant seductive hum. Soon she dared to speak her desires aloud, testing the darkness. Small things at first, childish whims, and then, with growing horror and a terrible thrilling fascination, she realized the well was listening and granting her wishes. But every gift came with a price, the terrifying catch she was too blind to see. The first wish was insignificant, a childish aversion. "I wish I didn't have to eat broccoli," she'd mumbled, half expecting nothing to happen. The next morning, her mother announced they were having pizza for dinner. A harmless coincidence, she thought. Then came the puppy, a scruffy, abandoned thing she desperately wanted. "I wish I had a dog," she whispered into the well's dark mouth. The next day, she found it shivering by the side of the road, its eyes wide and pleading. It was hers, but its previous owner was never found. The consequences began to escalate, the darkness tightening its grip. Her mother, usually vibrant and strong, fell ill with a mysterious ailment. The doctors were baffled, the diagnosis vague and terrifying. Ellie knew with a sickening certainty that it was her fault. Then there was Mark, the school bully. He tripped and broke his leg, a clean, brutal snap that left him screaming in agony. Ellie had wished he would just leave her alone. The well had listened, but its solution was far more permanent than she'd intended. The substitute teacher, Mrs. Henderson, a kind woman with a gentle smile, simply vanished. One day she was there, the next, gone. Whispers circulated, rumors of a sudden illness, a family emergency. Ellie knew the truth. She had wished for a day off from school. Each wish, each fulfillment, was a step deeper into the abyss. The well's malevolent nature became undeniable, its power a corrupting influence that twisted her desires into nightmares. It was no longer a source of wonder, but a monster lurking in the shadows, waiting to devour her soul. Despite the mounting horrors, Ellie couldn't resist the well's allure. The power was intoxicating, the ability to shape her world a dangerous addiction. She told herself she could control it, that she could use it for good. But the darkness had already taken root. Her parents, their marriage strained by years of unspoken resentments, were constantly fighting. The air in the farmhouse crackled with their anger, their words like poisoned darts. Desperate for peace, Ellie made her most terrible wish. "I wish they would just stop fighting." That night, a fire swept through the farmhouse. It started in the kitchen, a grease fire that quickly engulfed the entire house. By the time the fire trucks arrived, it was too late. Her parents were trapped inside, their screams lost in the inferno. And we stood in the yard, watching the flames consume everything she knew. The heat scorched her face, the smoke choked her lungs. But the pain was nothing compared to the icy dread that gripped her heart. She had wished for peace, and the well had delivered it in the most horrific way imaginable. In that moment, she understood the true horror of the well's power. It didn't grant wishes, it twisted them, turning desires into instruments of destruction. She had been a fool, a pawn in a game she didn't understand. And now, she had paid the ultimate price. Orphaned and alone, Ellie was taken in by distant relatives. They were kind, but their house felt cold and unfamiliar. She tried to forget the well, to bury the memories of its whispers and the horrors it had unleashed. But the darkness followed her, a shadow clinging to her heels. She was haunted by nightmares, visions of fire and shadows. The faces of her parents, contorted in terror, stared back at her from the darkness. The whispers returned too, faint at first, but growing louder with each passing day. One night she found herself drawn to the bathroom sink. The water dripped steadily, a rhythmic pulse that echoed the beating of her heart. She leaned closer, peering into the drain. It was dark, like the mouth of the well. Then she heard it, the familiar rasp, the chilling caress. "I'm still here, Ellie." The voice wasn't coming from the drain. It was coming from inside her head. The malevolent entity wasn't tied to the well or to any specific location. It was bound to her, a parasite feeding on her desires, her fears, her grief. She had opened the door, and now it would never leave. The story doesn't end with Ellie finding peace or redemption. It ends with her trapped, forever bound to this dark power. The cycle of wishing and suffering will continue, a never-ending spiral of horror. Whispers from the Well is a cautionary tale, a warning about the dangers of unchecked desires. It speaks of the unforeseen consequences of tampering with the unknown, of the price we pay for seeking power beyond our understanding. It reminds us that some doors are best left unopened, some whispers best left unanswered. For in the darkness, there are things that should remain hidden, things that will consume us if we dare to look too closely. And sometimes, the greatest horrors come not from the outside, but from within.